Hello. This is a request video. What do I think about politics? Like what political party I am? I'm not in a political party. When I was voting last, I had the decision, and I only had two decisions to vote for between Democrat or Republican. I was always choosing Democrats. I think Democrats are a lot better than Republicans. They're more in line with me with social issues. They're more, freedom-based and open-minded. I'm not trying to control you with making, abortion illegal and all that, making marijuana illegal and all that kind of stuff. They're also, I think, less beholden to the corporations. For example, if you look at TV, Fox News is all about the Republicans and against the Democrats, and then I guess NBC would be more Democrat and more against Republican. But I mean, just Fox, they just give me the creeps. I don't watch them that much. I was watching them a little bit back when I was living in my van because I was in the gym walking on the treadmill and watching them a little bit. And like every single day, they just have to have another problem with Obama. Like that's all they care about. And they use everything, and they use so much that it becomes just abundantly obvious to me that that's all they care about. They'll use anything. And they also lie. The Republicans, they lie through their teeth in Fox News. It's unbelievable. Like Paul Ryan, when they were doing the debate, Paul Ryan was saying that about some like coal factory or something in his hometown that was through some overregulation was closed down by Obama. But it was closed down in 2008 before Obama became president. And his tax plan was all skewed and for rich people. And even the way that guy talks, Paul Ryan, he's just like with that sneer, that angry sneer. And then Bill O'Reilly, how he talks with like a gangster, basically. Hey, what's up? With the people, come on. He's such a thug. He's so like low class. And and he says stuff that doesn't make any sense. Like he said they were talking about a strip club that opened up next to a nunnery and now a convent. He said that the nuns' human rights were being violated because the strip club wanted to open up next to him, which doesn't make any sense because the women are clothed when they walk in there. It's the strip club's rights that are being violated. But he makes stuff up too, like when he talked about Jesse Ventura, saying that like that guy Chris Kyle, interviewed him on his show, and he said he punched him and knocked him down, and Jesse Ventura said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never met the guy." And then because like supposedly Jesse Ventura was saying that he was glad that his friends were killed in Afghanistan, because they found out that Jesse Ventura was against the war in Iraq. And so then they come back and Bill O'Reilly has two ladies on his show saying that, we have sworn affidavits from two people saying that they witnessed it, but they didn't even bring the people on or film them saying anything. And like, why would you even go out of your way to say that? Like, that's not even news. That's just propaganda. So they just try to turn people against anybody who says anything negative against them. They go after them, and it's just ridiculous. The Benghazi thing, for example. Benghazi, the American embassy in Libya, where that was attacked by all those terrorists, and they killed the ambassador and like 4 guards, and supposedly they said, we need backup, and Hillary Clinton got on the phone and said, stand down or something. And then when they talked about it, they didn't say that it was a terrorist group because they didn't even know who it was. They didn't want to just say it was. So then Fox News gets on there and says, "Oh my God, yeah, it's Obama's fault. Why did they say stand down? Why did they say stand down?" And then in the talking points, why did they say it wasn't a terrorist group? What did they do? You know, and then they use that to try to say that he needs to be impeached. You know, like Obama needs to be impeached because his Secretary of State, like, said stand down when they should have gone in there, and like, you know, I mean, a simple mistake like that, and you need to impeach the president. It's so like they'll just choose anything, and they'll say, and they have this tone to them of just, you know, like Glenn Beck and these guys. They're just like, they're taking our freedoms. We have to take to power back. Oh my God, they're you know, they're such criminals. The world's gonna collapse if we let them take over. You know, and they use all this, like they get people riled up, and it works though. You know, they use all these fear tactics, and like, kind of like Hitler. Remember how Hitler used to give those speeches where he's all riled up and just foaming at the mouth, and oh my God, the Jews, we have to do something or we're gonna lose. You know, and then that works. It works to get people behind you, and I guess they're on top of the polls. I haven't seen all of the news, or I mean the statistics on it, but Fox is up there. But Bill O'Reilly has the average age of his viewers is 71, and Fox News polls are, you know, they're going down, and it started to go down after the Obama won presidency again. So. Yeah, it's clear to me that they're just a propaganda machine, and the Republicans, they are very, you know, slaves to the super rich people, like the top 1%, these multinational corporations, the banks, for example. When Romney was running for president, he was saying that he met with his bankers, and they told him the plan. You know, like he actually said that in the debate, like the bankers know what to do. So he's basically now, he's just admitting that he's just a stooge for him. And if you look at where he gets all his money from, it's all from the banks. Like the top 6 people where Romney gets his money from, well, and Obama too, is from all the different banks. And so then they get to write their own policies and stuff with them. And the banks are screwing people over. That's what happened with the whole housing market crash. They were charging too high of interest. And I've got a personal story with that. I owed a lot of money to credit cards. I owed like $10,000. Luckily, a friend loaned me $10,000 so I could get out of credit card debt. Now I'm back $1,000 in debt, and I need to get out of that quick, because I had one credit card, and I remember specifically, which one was it? I think it was called the Freedom, the Chase Freedom card. When I first got it, it was at 19%, and then I had to buy, my engine blew up, and I had to get my engine replaced, and so I maxed it out, and so then I owed like $4,000 on it. But I would keep up on the payments. I kept on every time, and they claimed that one time I didn't keep up on a payment, but I don't see how that's possible. They said I missed one payment. I don't see how that's even possible, though, because I would pay it as soon as I saw that I owed it, and you know, and I'd owe it, and the due date would be a month after I saw that I owed it. I think they made that up. But anyways, I owed 19%, and I kept up on all my payments, and by the time I finally paid it off, it was at 28%. I was just owing more and more. And 28%, I mean, that's too high. We used to have, I think 8% used to be the maximum up until like 2007 or something like that. And then it went higher even after that. But I'll include the screen capture, but because I remember I was watching the Young Turks the other day, and Cenk was saying that in 1978 they made some law that then caused all of the rich people to get even richer. And so I just typed what law they do in 1978, but they did do one law. I don't know if it's the one he was talking about, but in 1978 they got rid of the regulation for their credit cards. They let the states decide, I guess, what credit card, like what their credit card max would be. And South Dakota was one, and they wouldn't have to have any, interest ceiling, and so all the banks operate out of there. Here's an article from creditcard.com talking about how a Supreme Court ruling killed off usury laws for credit card rates. This is about when the rich started getting richer. But yeah, but I don't remember what year it was, but they got rid of all the regulations, so now the credit cards can charge way more interest, and they were doing that with me, charging me 28%, which is way too much, and making themselves super rich, and it didn't matter to them because they were so big that if they did fail, like if all these people defaulted on their payments and they were going to crash, the government would just go in there and bail them out because they were too big to fail. If they weren't bailed out, then the whole country would collapse. So they bail them out, and then they don't throw any of the bankers in jail, and the bankers get to then go work for another arm of the government. The lobbyists, which are the main government workers these days. For example, in 1997, the top 6 banks had, I think it was like 16% of the market share, and then now they have 60%. And it's even gotten worse, since like recent years. So, and another example of how lobbyists actually control is there was some guy, I was listening to the interview with Jake, some guy who was working for one of the good politicians, and there were these other congressmen calling around to a certain congressman, asking him about a certain bill, asking him the details of some bill that one of these big businesses wanted to pass, and before, I guess they used to just send him an email with a link to what the lobbyists would say, but now the lobbyists themselves are just calling him back and saying, okay, what do you want to know about the bill? Like, they're just letting the lobbyists deal with it. So in reality, in the government, you have the elected officials, the ones who we vote for, the congressmen, the governors and senators who need all the money to get into power, who make the laws. But then you have these big these huge businesses owned by the super rich people who own more of the money now than they did, or as much, and even more, I think, than they did back in the late 20s before the stock market collapsed. And they have their lobbyists who then, figure out, or told what the laws are going to be, help them figure out what the laws are going to be with the companies, and then go and tell the politicians what the laws are going to be. So the big companies just make the laws, and they put the politicians in power because like these days you need to have money, and I guess it's getting worse. Like in the past, people could win without having the most amount of money, but these days, in like federally related positions like Congress and president, 96% of the time the guy with the most money wins, and we keep spending more and more money on our elections. I think like the last election cycle for the president, they both spent like $1 billion, and the kinds of commercials you see are really surface. They're just fluff, Romney for America, and then you have him smiling with his family, and just really vague stuff, kind of like the kind of stuff you'd see in that movie Manchurian Candidate with Meryl Streep. Back then when they made that movie, it was totally, it was obviously farcical, but these days it's pretty much like the same thing. It's just getting more and more of a joke. And when they have the debates, between, I guess, the Democrats and the Republicans up there on Fox News and the other networks, they would kind of bark at each other, claim that each other are liars for about 2 minutes, and then that's that. That was supposed to be a debate, and they didn't really say anything. It's just all surface, nonsense, and so But I think it's becoming more and more obvious, and that's what, like one reason Fox News is losing their grip. Um, but I'll include a graph. It started to get bad back in 1978. Back in 1929, it was the worst. The top 1% owned 23.9% of the wealth. I'll show it on the graph. And then it crashed, and a bunch of those rich people lost their money, and they had to make new laws. For example, back then it was actually legal for all of those stock market insiders to trade insider information, the thing that Martha Stewart was thrown in jail for. And so after that, the stock market crash actually caused them to make laws where they couldn't do that, where it had to be, because they had all these normal people throwing money in the stock market thinking that they were going to make money off of it, but they were just giving their money away to the insiders who knew, all the secrets. So it wasn't a level playing field. But after that, it went down, and then it was actually getting better. You can see the graph get a little bit better. Here's another graph from the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. In 1947, from 1947, our economy was going up. The productivity is here in yellow. So we're all going up. Productivity, hourly, average hourly compensation in blue, and average hourly wage in red. And then here in the 70s, late 70s, it started to, the productivity really started to go up. But our hourly weight stopped going, and hourly wage, God, I can't pronounce, actually dipped and stayed here. So those super rich people are getting rich off of this productivity. Until 78, that's when they deregulated the credit cards, and they deregulated a whole bunch of other stuff, like for big businesses like Monsanto. One thing I really like about Alex Jones is that his researchers are really good at digging up actual video of people being caught red-handed, saying weird stuff. For example, they had the Wackenhuts trying to train each other that the founding fathers were actually anti-patriotic and that they were the bad guys. And I saw the actual video of that. But he had another video of George Bush, the guy at Monsanto, basically being like, "Yeah, George, well, we trust that you're going to do what we tell you to do and deregulate all this stuff so we can get this technology going." And he's like, "Yeah, you can trust us. We're in the dereg business." So, but if you look at the graph since then, that's when the rich just took off. I think they're 40% richer than the rest of us compared to the 70s, late 70s. But, productivity was going up since then. But the actual wages went down. You can see it actually went down. So it's like the wages go down, and then the rich, their share in the wealth goes up. So this chart, evolution of fractals of the top percent income share from 1913 to 2008, from Pekelian Science, shows how much money the top 1% make, or people who make over $1.7 million a year in red. Back here in like right before the crash in 29, they were up here at like 11%, and then they all lost their money during the Depression, and then it got better and better and better and better and better until the late 70s, and then when Reagan and the Republicans got in charge, the super rich people got super rich, richer, and now it's even they even have more money compared to everybody else, more than 13% in 2008 when Bush was in power than they did in 1928 when people were doing before we had all kinds of good laws into place. Back here people were allowed to do the insider trading. That was all legal in the stock market, and now it's even worse. And in this graph, the top 1% share of total pre-tax income from 1913 to 2008. It peaked at 23.9% in 1928, right before the crash, and then they went down to 15% down here at the end of the Depression. And then it was steadily getting better. It was getting better all the way until the late 70s, and then the Republicans take over. The lowest point was in 76 under Jimmy Carter, 8.9%. Then the Republicans take over and whoosh, goes way up to 2007 and Bush's era. It was at 23.5%, almost as much as in 1928. And then it went down a little bit to 21 in 2008. When there's these elections, the people who donate more than $10,000, 130 people donate I think it's 60% of the money to all of these candidates' advertising campaigns. So it's really concentrated. I don't know what the stats are, but if people really knew what they were, the top 1% owns, I think, most of the wealth is kind of going back to the days of, the robber barons back in the early 1900s, back in the Industrial Revolution, when J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller and those guys had all of these monopolies over the steel and the railway businesses and everything, and then before in the oil companies, before Teddy Roosevelt went in there and broke up this Standard Oil and all the different oil companies and made all of these anti-monopoly laws and made things better. But now it's starting to go back in that direction, back in the direction of those people. Banks are colluding with each other with all the insider information to, loan money to actual, like Stockton, California, loan money to them and talk them into, borrowing money from them to build some stadium they didn't even need, and then charge them too much of interest and just getting rich off it. And so it's like these social parasites. So anyways, I think if you're going to be into politics, or you should realize, when you think about politics, you should realize that it's it's in the best interests of the country to spread the wealth around, because when you have the top 1% of these big businesses being able to make all the decisions, it bogs down. We start spending money on stuff that doesn't help anything. For example, the military-industrial complex. We have so much money poured into that we make decisions that affect the rest of the world and the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, based on the income of these super rich people in the military-industrial industry. I have a friend, actually, whose dad started a plastics company, and they were going to try to do business with the military to sell it's a certain high-tech kind of plastic that you put it on, it coats things. And they were going to, they had a meeting with the general to do business with the military, and the general said, okay, well, here's the amount of money that you have to pay me. This is the same exact thing that governor who got thrown in jail, and he was on The Apprentice, I can't remember what his name is. It's illegal to do that, but this guy said, yeah, this is what you got to pay me. And it was in some exorbitant fee that they needed to pay to this general. And they went back and they were like, what? Did we understand that right? We're supposed to pay him all this money and to get the contract. So they go back to him, and he was rude to him. He's like, yeah, don't this is what my fee is. What? Get out of here. I already told you. So anyways, and then there was a documentary I saw. I loaned it to a friend. He never gave it back, but it's called The High Price of the Iraq War. and it kind of illustrates how, for example, Dick Cheney was the vice president of Halliburton. And then, when he was vice president, he actually still owed $4 million in shares in the company. And they're the private contractors that went into Iraq. And they were charging the government. They had these, no spending caps, no spending ceilings. So they could charge as much as they wanted. And so they were charging, the military $100 to do per load of laundry. And all it was just throwing the laundry in, and then in these huge machines that were then spinning them around and then spitting them out. I mean, it costed probably cents to do these people's laundry, and they get their laundry back, and it would just tore their clothes up and didn't even clean them, and so they started wanting to do their own laundry, and then they were told they had to throw their laundry in. It was mandatory, and they weren't allowed to wash their own clothes. And, and they had all those truckers in there driving around, getting paid $150,000 a year. But they were driving around in normal trucks, and then even security guys, instead of having soldiers with flak jackets and machine guns patrolling the streets, they'd have these whack and hut, security dudes for Halliburton in there. And those are the guys who got killed because they gave them trucks that weren't even bulletproof, weren't even protecting them, and it's. And they're just getting loaded off of it, charging the government. I don't know exactly how much money they were paying them, but they were just getting rich, and so it's just ridiculous that Fox News would support the Republicans so much, no matter what, even though they go into that war just to make money, and they kill hundreds of thousands of people, and then hundreds of American subcontractors. And they think George Bush is the greatest ever, and then Obama's, they're afraid to call the group because they don't know who it is, a terrorist group, or Hillary Clinton said stand down when she should have said go and get him, and 4 people die, and all of a sudden Obama needs to get him impeached. It's ridiculous. So, anyways, I think that's what's going on with politics these days. It's clear as day to me. I can tell when I look at Fox just how venomous the people on there are, like Craig Hutzvelt. When Jim Carrey did that song, just making fun of the gun people. It's just a funny song, just having fun, and then he gets all bent out of shape and says, all of a sudden all of Jim Carrey's movies were crap, and then his career is over and stuff. It's like they're giving orders to America. Like, Jim Carrey, your career is over. America's never going to watch any of your movies ever again. And so all the people who watch are like, okay, I'm not going to see a Jim Carrey movie again because he said, And but just the vile, just the bad attitude. When I see those guys, Greg Hutzvelt and all those other people, Sean Hannity, they just make me angry. I just look at their face and I know that they're these low class, stupid people who are just snatched off the street because they happen to believe what, be good puppets to what the Roger Ailes, the boss of Fox, believes, and so and they can just get on there and they'll say anything. I was listening to Howard Stern, and he was interviewing Alec Baldwin. And then Sean Hannity calls up, and he's all yelling at Alec Baldwin, screaming at him, "Hey, asshole, you said you were going to get on my show, and now you're on his show." And Alec Baldwin's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I never said I would never get on your show." They just make stuff up. And, and their attitudes are just, and they say the most ridiculous things, like Glenn Beck, when he had his final show, he said, I want to be like George Washington. George Washington said, it's a time that you serve, and then there's a time when you hang up and you serve in another domain. But just trying to make it like he can be a better for the world by not working for Fox. When that's his job. He's a commentator, and and like Sarah Palin. Whenever she opens her mouth, she's always going to just, her job is just to be anti-Democrat. She'll just say, And the way that she says it's just so simple, you know, like, no, when I hear Obama, it's just nauseating to have to hear him talk, you know. They're so divisive. But I think that works. I mean, the divisivity, I mean, I think Republican Party is more owned by these big companies than the Democratic Party, but I think they both are. I believe what Jesse Ventura says, that he wrote that book, Republic Crips and Republic Bloods and Democrats, that they're just, you know, the red and the blue team, and they're supposed to hate each other, but
it's in the white bag.
But when they hang out behind the scenes, they're making deals with each other and they're best buddies, and they're these big companies, when they give money to those two parties, they give money to both of them, so that whoever wins, they own them no matter what. These big companies spend the majority of their budgets on their lobbyists. So you know, it's like these social parasites. It's we're spending money, so much money, you know, which is resources, on stuff that doesn't actually produce an actual result. The war in Iraq, which gets these people rich, and then maintaining all the occupation, like with these drones. They probably they probably charge way too much money on these drones, way more money than it costs to build them. And so they just want to use them no matter what, because they have them, they just want to use them. So they're doing all these drone strikes and killing normal, you know, citizens. Most of the people they kill in those things are just you know, citizens, normal farmers up there in the mountains, you know. And so it's clear to me why people hate America. I'm doing email with a Muslim from Egypt, and he hates America, and he uses all the reasons that I use, and it's not just, I mean, and I hear actually that stuff because I have like what an American thinks of all these countries, and every day I get all these comments from all these countries that we hate America, you know, and it's because of all the money we spend going in these countries and killing people, yeah, so that doesn't produce anything. It's just spending money to kill people. And then the $1 billion we spent on the advertising for the presidential campaign. I mean, and then all the other presidential, like advertising campaigns for all of the other politicians whoever has the most money wins. And it's just a waste of resources, you know? And also when you have, and they're breaking the law, and they're not playing fair when they're playing all these games with the banks charging way too much interest, and then people paying as much as they can and then defaulting, and then the government paying them anyway, which is, you know, the people paying them anyway. So, and also when you have super big companies that control everything, it kind of, when you have a company that's so powerful that they don't even have to kind of be competitive with each other and have, you know, like good customer service and all this kind of stuff, then it just gets bogged down, and they become incompetent. The IRS is a good example. There's another thing we spend way too much money on that doesn't do anything. I mean, how much money a year does everybody spend on their accountant? Because the taxes are so complicated. The IRS tried to tell me I owed them $2,000 or something like that. No, $10,000, because they claim they never got my tax return from 2008, and I was like, that much? Why would I use that much? Like I barely made that much. And I tried to get to the bottom of it, and I had to call all these different. I had to send my tax returns again. Luckily, I still had them, to all these different offices, like one in Fresno, California, one in Indianapolis, Indiana, or something like that. I mean, one in like Georgia. They're all over the place. And I would have to wait for an hour, and then they'd connect me to the wrong division, and I'd be talking to somebody, and then they'd be rude to me. They wouldn't care. They'd be like snappy with me and telling me to, you know, calm down. I don't know, just, you know, because they can do whatever they want, man. You know, and so that's when it becomes more and more obvious that the companies can do this, then the companies eventually get like that. And then next thing you know, your credit card, you try to call your credit card company, and they're like, what do you want? You know, you're like, how come you said I defaulted on this payment when I didn't? Because we did. What? You know? I mean, it's kind of like becoming like Russia. When Russia first became capitalist and they brought McDonald's in there, people were so lethargic by then that people were working at McDonald's and you couldn't even get your food because they didn't even care. Like, people don't even care when no matter how hard you try, it doesn't do anything. You know, I mean, now people aren't even voting. Only 40% of the people vote in the presidential elections because they know they only have a choice between the blue team and the red team. But it works great. I mean, for regular stupid people, that whole blue team against the red team. It works great because then people can choose a side and then they can hate the other team and say that, oh, if the other guy gets voted, then it's over for everybody. So you got to vote for this guy. So then you have the choice of two. When the real people, they just want the same thing, but they're brainwashed into thinking that they're totally different. And if you look at the ads, you look at the ads of the Republicans talking about the Democrats, and they're always accusing them of lying, So, if you're going to believe everything they said, they make the Democrats out to be total crooks. But if you look at what the Democratic guy says about the Republican, he's a total liar, and then he makes him out to be a total crook. So if you're going to believe both of them, they're both total crooks, and they're all crooks. So maybe they are. So anyways, what party am I? Well, I don't even think we should have parties anymore. Parties, it's all, when you have a party, then it would just be like the new party. It would get taken over by these big businesses, and then they can use that whole idea to try to make themselves a good guy and everybody else bad. I think if we just have independence, then that would cause people to actually look at the issue, what the guy says, and listen to him and see that he's a real person with real ideas, and that he'll stand his ground and have integrity and say and not be owned by somebody. So yeah, I would call myself an independent. But out of the two parties, I'm Democrat. But I think, a libertarian before a Democrat, because they're more. They believe more in freedom, less laws, which also bog us down. All of these, the FDA and FCC telling people what they can and can't think and can and can't put in their bodies and stuff. Yeah. What else was I going to say about that? Oops. Can't remember. Anyways, yeah, so I think we're ready to just have independence and just vote, real people in. So as far as like the common political issues these days, I believe that abortion should be legal up until the third trimester, and we should stop doing all these drone strikes. And as far as killing Alawaki, these American citizens, we're supposed to put these people through trial, capture them and put them through trial. That's what you're supposed to do with citizens. And Obama was trying to say, oh no, if they become terrorists, then they don't have the rights of American citizens anymore. So they're just saying, so you can just decide amongst yourself you're not going to do a trial anymore, They're trying to take way more power than than constitutionally they have the right to. We're going all the way back to the Magna Carta back in 1200, when King John decided, that was his court. The court of the king, whatever the king decides. Oh yeah, we'll deliberate between me, and 5 people. But that's not what we're supposed to follow the law and deliberate between all of the people who represent America and America, and make it more democratic. Make all the individual people involved. So, but luckily we have the internet and we have the technology for people to communicate with each other. So and people are starting to wake up to all this stuff. So I think, in 2016, I saw that Jesse Ventura is thinking about running. Yeah, I'd vote for him. I'd vote for anybody just because they're a independent. Last time I voted for Gary Johnson, third party. And that was the first time I voted for a third party person. So I think from now on, more and more people are going to vote third party. I'm never going to vote Democrat or Republican for the presidential race anymore. And if I see people in local races, I'd vote for the Libertarian before the Democrat and an independent before him, and I would just, people can put on their website their political ideas. I think the future of politics is, see, now it's just fluff, you go to one of the presidential candidates' websites and it's all a picture of he and his family and like some stupid slogan and that's it. You don't know anything about him, and it even gets comical. Like when Herman Cain ran, he was obviously running just to have fun. He didn't know anything better to do with the money. He happened to be already in a position of power because he was on some board of trustees for like some big conglomerate of banks that ran the politicians anyway, and they were like, "Oh, you want to be president? Yeah, man. If you win, then yeah, we can all make the decisions about all this stuff together." Good old boy network. So then he was just, it was obvious he didn't have any actual ideas. He had his 777, and people were like, "Hey, explain your 777 plan." He's like, "What? 777? What?" And then he made that commercial about the cowboy. It was like a half hour long. It was his presidential commercial. And it's some white cowboy who goes in, and then he beats up a black cowboy for trying to for being rude to him or whatever, and he had yellow flowers. He was going to a pretty lady, and then that was just the movie, and then it's the actor like, "Yeah, you know me from the cowboy actors." And some lady was like, "Hey, would you want a coffee?" And he's like yelling at her, like, "Go get it, bitch!" He was obviously this big asshole, and then he's like, "Yeah, the yellow flowers," and then he's like, "Vote Herman Cain," and then at the end of Herman Cain's like, "And I approve this message." It was like, are you kidding me? Like, was that a joke? It must have been a joke. Herman Cain must have been like, "Ha ha, I'm gonna run for president. These stupid idiots. Let's just make something stupid, But the cowboy dude is obviously a dick. O'Reilly's obviously a dick. Greg Hutzfeld is an asshole. Sean Hannity, all these guys, they're so rude. And the tone of their voice is always angry, and they're so ignorant, but they're so powerful. So, at the end of the day, we do live in a democracy, and I think that's what most people don't really understand is people like to blame, the Illuminati or even these super rich people and all that stuff, but they don't really realize that people are all a product of their environment, and these, like even these rich people, they're born in these big families, and they're just raised to try to get what they can and make as much money as they can for themselves, and it doesn't really matter, And I think that's one way that religion can actually help out, because it gives us the idea that we actually that like we live, like there's this God, there's this, we're part of this greater world, that the purpose of everything is for us all to cooperate and all look out for each other, not to have one group of people controlling everybody else, because they're like better than everybody else. And when it gets really too oligarchical, it always collapses. We had the French Revolution, we had all these, especially after World War I, all of these old systems of oligarchical systems like the Ottoman Empire and the Habsburg Empire collapsing, and all of their old royal families losing the power and becoming becoming a republic with the set of laws that's democratically elected, and they lost their power, and then the real lower class people, non-connected families who are hardworking, can come up in the world and gain power and make more freedom for everybody and spread the wealth around. So it is. I think that's the process that we're going through right now. People are starting to wake up really fast, and we'll be voting more independent for the independent guy. I think Jesse Ventura could win president next time, and then we'll start to put interest rate regulation on credit card companies and banks, and not have all of these special deals. I mean, we subsidize the oil companies, billions, I don't know how much, millions of dollars a year. And then they use, they can continue making cars out of gas. But now we have the Tesla car coming up. People are starting to get more and more against war, so I think they're going to lose their power. But I think we should use the word socialism should be more positive word. If you look at the little graph, and maybe I'll show it now, but socialism is has a negative connotation because these popular people on Fox like to compare it to Russia. Oh, and Russia didn't work. Look, socialist. But once we have a stronger economy, we can use the tax money to help people who need it, so that they can have more of an opportunity, and to have socialized healthcare system that's more controlled by not by like a government, an oligarchical government, but an actually democratically elected, transparent government that can manage stuff responsibly. So yeah, I think in the future, these people, the politicians of the future, are going to be people who are educated. In the past, the people who became president and stuff were, I'm almost about to run out of power. The people who became president were like connected people, like generals and businessmen. But in the future, I think the people who will become president will be, here we go. In the future, the people who become president will be the educated people. I think, reporters, political pundits, and university professors, and people who know what they're saying. And the person who wins the election is going to be the guy with the best website and the best videos, and kind of educates the people also, and proves that they know what they're talking about and has the best ideas for the country, and isn't beholden to these big companies. We need campaign finance reform. I think there's different aspects to that. One of them is, once people are more, it has to be transparent. It's not even transparent now. People don't even have to. You don't even have to know who they are. And their reasoning for that, their defense is, oh, but we don't want to be bullied. We don't want to be bullied around. Well, yeah, people would hate you if you call people giving you hate mail because you deserve it as being bullied. Well, yeah, but that shouldn't be a reason why you should be completely anonymous. But, people do find out, because we live in the age of information, who the donors are. And you find out, the top 6 donors of Obama and Romney are, banks. Banks and Philip Morris. I mean, aren't these guys the people who make the cigarettes? You find out, why is marijuana illegal? Well, if you dig around a little bit, the politicians who make it illegal are put in power by cigarette and alcohol companies, And so, I mean, the idea that you're not even, you don't even have to disclose. I like Jesse Ventura's idea that all of the politicians should be like NASCAR racers, where they have to wear suits, where they with all of their sponsors written on their suits. Well, I don't think they should have to wear suits, but I do think that their websites, right on the front page, should have all of their donators and exactly how much money they donate. That's how my website is. I'm already leading the charge. My history timeline website, I have the donator page, and I show exactly who gave me what for my timeline. And so, I think if you want to see a change, you have to be the change. And so I try to do my best with that. I mean, I don't have the time now, but when I'm done with my timeline, yeah, I would like to I want to make a website as though I was running for Congress, And if it's still really bad, maybe I will run. Because I just make a website showing all of my political ideas, why I believe what they are. And that's why in the future we should have, political pundits running, because they spend all their time, like Cenk, somebody like Cenk, people, the Young Turks, people who show what they believe politically and all their problems and all their grievances with the politics and everything. If you're already spending so much time trying to figure out what the laws should be and why the bad laws, need to get replaced, then you might as well go ahead and run for office, because you're better. By then, you're a better choice than these people who are running now. So I think we'll see more of those people, and they already have the name recognition, So yeah, I mean, in the future, we do need to change the laws where you don't have to provide a bunch of money just to get on the ballot. I mean, it's so obvious what the changes need to be, because they're actual laws. You have to have a certain amount of money to get on the ballot. You shouldn't have to have any money to get on a ballot. Let anybody be on the ballot. You don't have to be part of a political party. And I mean, it is kind of already like that. I remember when I voted for president, I had like 20 different people to choose from. But everybody chooses between the red and the blue. So, it is the people's fault as well. It's kind of like the Crips and the Bloods. There are only two teams. There's the red and the blue team, the Crips and the Bloods. And you're either a Crip or you're Blood. And if you're a Blood, you hate the Crips. And if you're a Crip, you hate the Bloods, even if your own brother is in Bloods. Now you're a way closer friend to a fellow Crip, whom on normal circumstances maybe you wouldn't even get along with at all, and you hate your brother. And I remember how Howard Stern was interviewing the Game, who come from South Central, and he said, yeah, the Game said, yeah, I didn't know anybody who had a choice. You get thrown into the gang of the block that you happen to be living in, and you're in that gang, and that's just how it is. And so it kind of goes down to human psychology. Somebody asked me, why is marijuana illegal? And I said, well, people need a bad guy. And so now the stoners are the bad guy. And so it's kind of like people, that's the whole mentality of Democrats versus Republicans and Crips versus Bloods. They need a bad guy, so make that guy the bad guy. And you only have two teams where they hate each other, kind of like the Capulets and the whoever from Romeo and Juliet. It's been going back, for a long time. I mean, I've been reading the Gaelic Wars. In the Gaelic Wars, it was kind of like that. The Celts in France, they were beholden to two of the biggest tribes, the Aedui and the Arverni, and their capital cities of the two tribes were only 100 miles away from each other. But all the other little tribes, they would be this team or that team. Okay, now we hate each other. Now we're going to fight, and it works great to keep the power in the hands of the few, because then they can do the special. They can keep people distracted with hating the other team, and then they can keep themselves in power by actually doing deals with each other on the high end. So I think we should get out of the whole mindset of I'm this political party, and so I hate the other political party, and we got to. And if he gets in again one more time, it's over for America. And if anybody talks like that, like it's over for America if the other guy gets in, then you automatically know that he's full of shit, and he needs to don't even listen to him. Listen to the dude who's like a real person. He actually talks about the real issues and the reasons behind it. He does a little bit of thinking, philosophizing in his head, and that's why I love the Young Turks, because I mean. Look, it is black and white. It's like if you're for the super wealthy, the top 1%, who then you're the bad guy. And if you care about everybody else, all the normal people, then you're the good guy. But I think there's this fear. There's this really morbid fear that these super rich people have, of being afraid of people with some pigmentation in their skin coming up in the world, because they think the world's going to collapse or something, and that's not true. We're all a product of our environment, and if we all live in a world where our education is all good, then we're all going to be good. But so we need to keep the funding going for Social Security and Medicaid and all this kind of stuff, and we do have the money for it. I mean, when these people say and also projection, people are always projecting against each other. If you hear like Glenn Beck and these guys, oh no, the Democrats are going to take over the country, we're losing all of our freedoms, and these are the same people who, by the way, think that marijuana should be illegal and abortion should be illegal. That's not freedom. But when you hear these people freaking out and saying that those are the bad guys and that they're always lying and everything, then I'm just like, oh, okay, so you're the bad guy and you're lying because you're just using that, the Hitler technique. Whoever screams the loudest yells fire the loudest. Oh well, he must be the good guy. Well, not really. You're just using an old technique that used to work, but people are smarter now. So. So yeah, I mean, so like, what are my basic political ideas? Well, I believe in social freedom, because I believe in the common everyday person shouldn't be treated like a child and should, be treated like an adult and make decisions for themselves. So I believe we should legalize all drugs, legalize abortion up until third trimester. Not make people mandatorily, get drafted into the army or have to go to school or any of this kind of stuff, not have to show a bunch of money to become a politician or legally, according to a law, have to have a degree in order to get a job and this kind of stuff. But we should have regulation, government regulation that regulates, what the interest cap should be when you borrow money from a bank to buy a house or to get a credit card loan or something like that. And that would. Now, this whole Monsanto thing is also important. I think we should nationalize stuff. We should nationalize the banks because then we can have more control over the regulation of it once we get the right politicians in. And then also nationalize Monsanto. We should nationalize anything that everybody uses. And the way that we would have a meritocracy for that is with our elected officials. You just get the right elected officials in there to make rules. I mean, Monsanto, they win all kinds of weird stuff. Like now Monsanto doesn't have to label on foods that it's even a GMO. They don't have to label it. They get to keep it. So that's also another thing, transparency. But then also protect organic people, not throw them in jail for growing that kind of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, if people want to feel empowered, I think you should, be the change. So you should be transparent yourself. Don't project. Don't just accuse somebody of being a liar or like a cheat or anything like that without giving any examples. If you do have an argument with somebody, give examples. I've had so many arguments with people or heard people say ridiculous things like, give me a percentage or why somebody did something. And I'm like, well, where'd you read that? And they're like, what? I don't know, but I know it's true. I've heard it everywhere. What do you mean, where did I read it? It's kind of like that question when Katie Couric's like, Sarah Palin, what magazines do you read? What news sources? Everything. What are you talking about? Everything. Just name something. And so be transparent yourself. Be educated. Don't lie. Don't accuse other people of lying, and don't lie. And then know what your ideas are about all the specific political ideas, and have them up on your website. And then if everybody did that, then our politicians would do it and our politicians would have to, because all the people would expect them to, because they do it themselves. So basically that's what I think about politics. But I think it's getting better. People are getting smarter fast, and I'm really looking forward to the downfall of Fox News, and because I think they're going to they'll probably adjust, and become more fair and balanced like they claim they are. But they're not going to keep up with how smart the populace is going to be, and they're just going to appear to be more and more ridiculous. Fox News was started in the 80s on like a $300 million budget. So they got to just pop out of nowhere and be able to say whatever they wanted, to get their way. And it was successful because when people, hear people, if you're foaming at the mouth, They're like, okay, yeah. You know, it was funny. I saw interviews with supporters of Sarah Palin, and they asked her what they thought about Sarah Palin's issues and anything. They didn't know anything. Well, they were like, yeah, Sarah Palin, yay, she's a rock star, So when people are dumb, they're going to get somebody just like them, dumb, into power, and then they're going to be controlled by the people with the money because all they care about is money. And then you can tell them whatever you want. You make stuff up, it doesn't matter. When people are smart, they're going to get the smartest person in there, and that's what we need. We need the smartest people in power, and it's never really been like that in America. With our founding fathers, luckily it was, but generally it really the smartest people go to where the money is, but I think once money becomes less and less important to be happy, because more and more people can afford to go mountain biking, whatever, take time off. Once spare time and having fun becomes the coveted thing, then the smart people aren't going to be like tempted to just do whatever it takes to make money. And once we have like a more like world religion where we all understand that we're all better off if we all care about each other and care about everybody, all levels of society, all religions, and parts of the world, then the smart people are going to gravitate towards that as well. And I think that's the direction we're going, really quickly too, where people aren't going to go after just the money. People are going to go after doing what's right, and realize that that's what truly makes you happy and what makes everybody happy. Countries that have the most wealth discrepancy, the rich people aren't happy. They can't leave their house. They can't go and enjoy a mountain bike ride in the mountains, or they get kidnapped, or it's all private property anyway. And so the countries that have the most wealth spread around, the rich people are the happiest because they can just get out there and have fun and not worry about getting targeted or feeling guilty, or they're just not feeling fulfilled because they know that they're not helping the common person. So yeah, I think independent party is the way to go. Social freedom to protect the rights of the individual person, but regulation, strong regulation to protect the rights of the individual person from, the small business owner from being able to start a company. So you don't have to spend $30,000 to get your all natural product tested. To open up a business, and we definitely, call back all the litigiality. So people suing each other for nothing and for no reason and all this kind of stuff, that's not good, because it makes it so that we have to make all these laws that would cause people to jump through all these hoops if they want to bring their product forth, So just do little things like that to help small businesses. All the services that we provide, small businesses can provide them just as cheap. The only reason that Walmart can sell stuff for so cheap, and Costco and all that, originally is because they were using technology, like scanning stuff really quickly, but that stuff was probably too expensive because they had some kind of buy in bulk deal for cheaper. But now we're getting rid of the middleman left, right, and center. People are starting to buy cars directly from the manufacturer, the car companies. Sure, some industries failed. See, that's another problem when you have super rich people controlling everything, is because then they have all these people working for them. And so now if you want to break up that big company and make it so that normal people can make smaller companies, all the people who work for that big company are going to fight against it. And then you're going to have the masses fighting against it because they're all working for this old system. Like apple pickers. You invent a machine that can shake the tree yourself, and then all the apple pickers are like, well, where are our jobs going to go? Oh no, and then they make a union against it. But if you have politicians who make it legal to have the apple pickers, then you have responsible banks that will loan you money, normal people money, to buy the apple picker machine at a low interest rate. Then everybody can go into business themselves, and all those people who used, and then those people can move. The other people can just move on to some other job, and then we would have a strong enough economy because of that, so that the people who can't find jobs can at least not starve. But figuring all this stuff out comes through transparency, so that people can actually go up and find the statistics and the numbers and all that kind of stuff. And so anybody who tries to hide information, like where they get their money, they're the bad guy. I know I kind of hide where I get my money, but that's because I have to, because my family's freaked out if I don't, and I don't get that much money anyway, so it's not like, don't throw me in that boat. I'm not one of these fucking super rich people. Yeah, it's getting kind of dark. So that's basically what I think about politics.